The matchup between the Gladiators and the Mayhem was shaping up to be a close one, with the Gladiators off of 2 victories the week before. Heading into the second map of Havana, however, they got off to a bit of a rocky start, with the Mayhem holding them on the first point. Their own defense though was showing renewed life, with a composition that relied on the long-range damage of Hanzo and Widowmaker really constricting the Mayhem's ability to consistently push. The last fight, however, was shaping up to be a brawl, with both teams sporting a slew of ultimates, including EMP. In this edition of Behind the Action, we're going to take a look at how teams play against an EMP, and how teams are slowly able to burn through an enemy's resource pool in order to secure a victory. Heading into this final fight, there are a number of key things to note. First and foremost, the ultimate bank for both teams is fairly loaded, with both teams having Supercharger, Infrared Sights, and Transcendence. Most importantly for the side of the Mayhem, they have Yaki's EMP finally online. For the Gladiators, it's all about properly spy-checking Yaki's position in order to give Shaz the opportunity he needs to use his Transcendence, in order to provide the necessary healing for his teammates to survive. Alongside this, the Gladiators want to maintain as much pressure on the Mayhem, knowing that as the clock ticks down and the game goes into overtime, they will have to maintain a presence on the point. As the Mayhem begin their approach, they send Yaki into the backline to gain positioning for his potential EMP, while the rest of the team gathers in the backstore before pushing in. The Gladiators' positioning looks to provide as many angles as possible with which to attack while being spread out far enough to not have their entire team hit by this fated EMP. They pair their 2 tanks on the cart to prevent any further push, while Kevster takes a position overlooking the cart and the Mayhem's approach. Mirror, meanwhile, takes a position on the ledge to keep him obscured, and provide healing in a potential immortality field if need be. However, it's perhaps the positioning of Shaz as the Zenyatta which is the most important. His positioning near this corner alongside Birdring's Hanzo is particularly advantageous. For one, it denies Yaki a potential clear line of sight on multiple targets by having to deal with Shaz's positioning around a corner. Combined with this is the fact that Shaz is partnered with Hanzo, who has an explicit ability which can spot Sombra when she is in stealth. Sonic Arrow can scout the nearby area and let both him and Shaz know when Yaki is nearby, giving them the split second that Shaz might need to pop his Transcendence, before Yaki can use his EMP. As the fight begins, the Mayhem use their Infrasight to give the rest of their team a better idea of what the Gladiators' position is. The Gladiators immediately respond with their own Infrasight that immediately highlights Yaki sitting in their back line. Mir immediately spots this, and puts enough damage onto Yaki which forces him to translocate even further behind the Gladiators. As the Mayhem begin to emerge from the bookstore, the Gladiators immediately use their Supercharger, granting them a distinct advantage through the collective damage boost. For the Mayhem, it forces them to make a decision on whether or not they want to continue their push into the Gladiators. The Mayhem end up deciding against it, buying the Gladiators even more time, and in tandem burning more and more time off of the Mayhem's clock. The only member of the Mayhem who doesn't retreat is Gargoyle, who flanks on the right to gain access to the high ground. Meanwhile, in the backline, Yaki attempts to try and get the drop onto Kevster while he is not actively looking for him. Unfortunately, Mirror does spot Yaki's outline and makes the call to Kevster, who promptly turns around and forces Yaki to translocate out. Kevster takes this as an opportunity to shift his position to the house on the right, asked to stay in range of any potential Transcendence healing. Not only this, but his move is also important as it denies the Mayhem any clear idea of what Kevster's position is as their Infrasight ends. For Kevster, this also allows him the potential to take up any flanking positions that he otherwise would not have been able to get. Once both the Infrasights have expired and the Gladiator Supercharger has run out, the Mayhem finally decide to make their move by moving out from the bookstore. As they move out, Fate instantly pops his own Supercharger. When the Gladiators immediately see the Mayhem emerging, they instantly use OG's Halt with Birdring Dragon Strike to catch them in the doorway. This forces Gangnam Jun to use his Transcendence in order to allow his team to survive and push out of the Dragon Strike. At the same time, Gargoyle emerges from his flank on the high ground and catches 3 members of the Gladiators in his Gravitic Flux. The Flux is extremely effective, and just misses out on eliminating Birdring, who gets brought down to 4 health. This forces Mir to use his Immortality Field in order to guarantee that Birdring won't die. The Gladiators end up being forced to concede some high ground as the Mayhem push forward with their Transcendence. What's more is that during this entire process, Yaki has moved back into position and is just about ready to use his EMP. As Yaki attempts to decloak, the sound cue from Sombra coming out of stealth immediately alerts Shaz to Yaki's presence, and he automatically uses his Transcendence just before Yaki activates his EMP. The climactic EMP hits all members of the Gladiators except the supports. Despite this, the Gladiators use this as an opportunity to push forward, with the additional healing of Transcendence onto Gargoyle, who Shaz put a Discord Orb onto before using his ultimate. This additional damage buff to Gargoyle works in the Gladiators' favor, as they immediately bring down Gargoyle down to low health, which forces the Mayhem to have to use their own Immortality Field. Space, however, goes a little bit too far, and as the Transcendence fades, he catches a Discord Orb from Gangnam Jin, which brings him down to low health. Gargoyle spots this and winds up in Accretion just as the EMP effects wear off on Space, allowing him to quickly cast his projected barrier to block the Accretion. With all of the ultimates used up for both sides, the fight now enters a crucial state, where the first pick will almost certainly decide the fight. Firstly, Yaki attempts to ambush Shaz into the backline, drawing both Shaz and Birdring's fire away from the front and away from the shields and tanks of the Mayhem. As for Kevster, his position on the flank has clearly been spotted by BQB and Gangnam Jin. This forces Kevster away from this more advantageous angle and to one that offers less visibility of the members of the Mayhem. In fact, it completely takes away the threat of Widowmaker as a whole. Meanwhile, in the front line, Space has continued to try and push Gargoyle back. He again catches an Orb of Discord from Gangnam Jin, which brings him down to low health, but his use of Kinetic Grasp acting as a shield allows him to retreat. Fate, however, has different plans, perfectly landing a halt onto Space by shooting it directly at the ground, not giving him a chance to absorb it. This halt brings Space right back into the Mayhem's front line, and perhaps most importantly brings him behind the Mayhem's shield, meaning that he can't be healed by either Mir or Shaz. This is all the Mayhem need to immediately jump onto Space and burst him down. This elimination breaks the Gladiators' hold, and using the amplification matrix from Chris, the Mayhem are able to quickly roll over OG, then finally pushing the cart the remaining way to secure the map victory. This final fight is a perfect representation of the ways in which teams have to negotiate their positioning and burn through their resources correctly to win a team fight. More so, it's about the small, individual decisions that decide the outcome and how it only takes skill to flip the win. This video is made possible by our newly released Patreon. A big thank you to everybody on this list, and shout out to Arknox, Sammy, Shampoo, and Nathan for being Platinum supporters. And a special shout out to Rafi for being our Diamond supporter. Thanks a lot, guys, we really appreciate it. If you also want to support our channel and unlock perks, check out the Patreon link in the description below or become a member of our Discord community. If you want to help in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Nikita, and thank you for watching.